What's up everybody, Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video, and in this video we're going to be breaking down the golden rules for ranked wins. Now this is a list of things that if you do, you will have the greatest conversion to following these tips and winning games. So if you want to win more games, make sure you watch to the end so you don't miss out on any of these important ranked tips that are going to allow you to easily climb. But go to the GameLeap website right now for in-depth rating and VOD reviews, advanced weapon guides, mechanical guides, and much more. We got it all at the GameLeap website, so go check it out in the links down below. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Now the first tip that I have for you that really is going to convert to a lot of games that you're just going to win right off the bat, and it's setting the pace. You see, a lot of times in games there is no communication, no direction, and the game goes and starts and players are just kind of, grouping together, following each other with no clear plan. I'm telling you to be that proactive voice that is making the plan. Hey guys, let's do this. Let's go here. Clear this. Talk to your team. Take on that role of commanding with comms. You see, in a lot of games, players will wait until they're down like by 10 rounds to say their first word, and it's always toxic, am I right? But if you can not only start the conversation right off the bat, but set the pace and the direction of the game, this right here is gonna convert to so many wins right off the bat. And this directly leads into the second rule that is incredibly important for you to understand, and that it's early performance matters more than any other performance. You see, a lot of players will get tilted when they start to lose. They'll lose a couple of rounds, maybe 1, 2, maybe even 5 in a row, and that really mentally booms them for the rest of the game. You see, mentality matters, and when players start to give up, they either get incredibly toxic towards one another, or they're not really trying or doing things based on discipline. They start forcing random rounds, not listening to any strategies, and kind of just doing their own thing, essentially ensuring the loss. Now, conversely, an early lead not only gives everyone on that team confidence, but the mentality of every single person is going to allow them to play better while the enemy team is under a fair bit more pressure. Now, this could snowball to the entire game, and you see this a lot when a game starts off really one-sided and then just goes even more and more and more, and then all of a sudden it's an absolute stomp. Now, a good way to actually create this early performance is making sure that you always warm up, because you never want to be going into that first game not completely ready to click heads and dominate. Remember, your performance in those early rounds and pistol round not only matters more for economy's sake, but it really matters more for that mentality aspect like I talk about here, so definitely keep that in mind. Now moving on to the third big tip that you need for competitive ranked, and it's forcing enemies to respect you. How many games have you played where enemies just basically don't respect you or your entire team over and over again? They're constantly challenging an angle, they're constantly peeking on defense, they're constantly pushing up mid. Whatever the case may be, they are giving you and your team absolutely no respect. Now the first thing that you need to do is identify how the enemies are doing this. Are they setting up unfair advantages? Are they playing in a way that you can counter, and you always can counter it if they become predictable? So that's the first takeaway. And the second thing that you need to do is not fight fair. You see, when enemies become predictable and start playing in a way that doesn't respect you, it doesn't matter how mechanically good they are, you can set up an engagement that is just systematically unfair. Whether that means waiting for them, you can wait as long as it takes for them to push up for you to get a free kill on them. You can set up an engagement where an enemy keeps peeking this angle, and you have one of your players flash out and you push that player and kill him while he's blind. Essentially, if players on the enemy team are lacking respect for you and your team, you need to grab that respect back as soon as possible, because even a singular person that is left unchecked where they just don't respect you, they're gonna start feeling more and more confident, heating up more, getting ultimates more, and it's gonna snowball for them as well, in the same way that we talked about before for your team when you have good mentality. Now the fourth big thing that you need to understand in every single competitive game is that most maps are defensive sided. Now this is even worse on maps like Split that are overwhelmingly defensive sided, but the reason that this is important for you to understand is a lot of players, if they actually get that unfavored side first, they start off doing really poorly, they get toxic, and the team just collapses. And then when they're actually on the side that they're favored in, they have already collapsed mentally, they're toxic towards one another, and they just lose the game outright. It's important to frame the games based on how favored they are in the first place. For example, you could say something like, hey, we're really unfavored, we only need to get 4 rounds, and then we got defense easy, we got a cipher, we're gonna pop off here, don't worry about it, team, but let's just get this next round. This is not only identifying the fact that you're already at a disadvantage, so there's no reason to start lashing out at each other, but it's really keeping the mentality of your team on the same level, and it's really important, as I keep reiterating. Now move on to the 5th big thing that you need to understand, and it's that every kill matters. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see, specifically in lower ranked players. Like, they often will get in a scenario where it's like 2v4, right? And instead of getting more disciplined and playing for picks and, you know, trying to turn the fight, they get a lot less disciplined. They start going aggressive. In their mind, they already lost this fight, so there's no point in playing passive anymore. Let's just go in and get this round over with. Well, the thing that you need to understand about Valorant in particular is that fights are often turnable in a moment. How many times have you been down 2 people or 3 people, and then all of a sudden 2 of your teammates get 2 headshots, and it's at parity again. Now, on top of that, economy is key, so having more discipline, especially when you have less people, is important, because just getting those kills, even if you don't clutch out the round, could be absolutely amazing for giving you an ultimate point, can mess up the enemy's economy and prevent them from getting an ultimate point, and that can have profound effects on the rest of the game that you can't even quantify. Now moving on to the 6th big rule of rank that's going to have a huge conversion on winning more games, and it's a pretty simple one: mute toxic people. I can't repeat this enough. If someone is unhelpful, if people are unreasonable, or if people are just playing the blame game and they're not helping what's going on, they're yelling at each other while you're trying to clutch, or they're just saying generally unhelpful things, just mute them and move on. Don't even engage with these people. Don't try to argue, don't give a reason for them to get tilted, but completely disengage from both voice and text chat. It is really important for you to do this right away, because not only can these people affect you and get you tilted, but if you get them tilted, they might even just start throwing just because they're pissed. I mean, the type of players that you find in ranks sometimes are completely unreasonable, and if comms are not actively helping you win, then there's no point in having them. Now moving on to the 7th golden rule of ranked, and it's having a competitive mentality. And there's several aspects to this. The first thing that you need to understand about the competitive mentality is, at the end of the day, the only thing that matters for you is what it means to get the win. Now, what that means for you is you should be playing and abusing what is the de facto best thing in the meta. Competitive players understand the meta, they adopt the meta, and they adapt to enemies playing the meta. They don't complain about the meta, complain that a certain strategy that is extremely powerful is broken. This type of stuff is players that want to play the game how they want to enjoy the game, right? They just want to play a game that is crafted to what they like and what they dislike. But that's not the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is certain things are buffed, certain things are nerfed, certain guns are good, and certain strategies are good. And as a competitive player, as a competitor, you adopt these things and you make them work for you. And as a competitor as well, you find ways to counter these strategies and still thrive even in that environment. It's not about complaining and changing, because those are things you can't control. It's about taking your own wins into your hands and not only using but abusing things that are extremely powerful in a certain state, and always adapting to changes in a meta. Now moving on to the tip number 8, and this one is probably far too relatable, and it's don't always trust your teammates. And the problem that happens a lot of times is sometimes you give your teammates trust for absolutely no reason. And I know that you think that your teammates should clear this angle and they should do this, but if you rely on your teammates too much, especially at the lower ranks, they're gonna let you down because they do not fill the expectations that you have for them. Essentially what I mean here is, of course, as you climb the ranks, you're gonna have better teammates, and those teammates are gonna be much more consistent at doing certain things like clearing sight, making sure no angles left unchecked and things like that. But until you get to that point, you need to be a lot more reliant on what you're specifically doing and not assuming that your teammates are filling a role or doing something when there's no clear sign that they did that at all. And this is a trap that players run into a lot when they like rush onto point, follow the leader style, and one enemy is hiding in the corner and kills like all 4 of you. Now moving on to the last tip that I got for you, and this is the most important tip in the entire video, and this is a response to players that often say, I cannot climb because I have really bad teammates no matter how many kills I get, no matter what I do. My teammates are awful, and I just can't do enough or do anything to win the game. Here's the thing that you need to understand. You are the difference maker in every single game. You see, every single teammate that you have on your team is at the same rank that you are because they have certain strengths that got them there in the first place and certain weaknesses that are preventing them from climbing higher. Now, are your teammates going to be able to consistently perform and dominate in every single one of their games with you? No, because if they could do that, they wouldn't be in the rank that you are in the first place if they could perform on average better than you. You need to understand that the players that you have on your team and the enemy team are all random and uncontrollable, but you are the constant. You're the only person that can change your outcome, and over time, if you produce above average results, you will climb to an above average rank, and it will keep happening again and again. I kind of touched on this topic before, but the biggest thing that you need to understand, and if you take anything away from this entire video, take this away. You do not deserve good teammates until you can climb to the rank that those players exist in. Now, what you consider good or not, I'm gonna leave that up to you, but this quote can pretty much apply to you no matter what rank you're at, unless you're at the highest rank. So definitely keep this in mind, and you're gonna have a much better time in ranked. And if you incorporate all these strategies, I'm telling you, they have an extremely high conversion rate on adopting these strategies and winning more games on average and improving as a player. But improvement is just a click away at the GameLeap.com website, where we have in-depth, radiant VOD reviews made by our top 100 player Tanner, agent guides, map guides, and much more. Do yourself a favor and go check it out in the links down below. But that's all we got for you today. Thanks so much for coming by. I'm Coach Mills, and of course, until next time.